And so anyway, that's what the video was. So grace and peace. Today we start a new sermon series. It is called Just Jesus, and I'm super excited about this series because we're going to take the next 2 months through the summer, all the way through July, and we're going to hang out in the Gospels, specifically in the Gospel of Luke, and we're going to talk about the stories of Jesus. We're going to talk about Jesus. We're going to talk about just Jesus, and not only are we going to talk about Jesus all summer long, we're going to talk about how he is just. And we're going to talk about issues of justice. Now, the title of the sermon today is, What Does Jesus Do with Evil? And yes, we're going to talk about the demons and the story that Trina just read. But before we do, I have to share a funny thing that happened this week. Now, I don't know what you think that I do when I'm in my office here at the church through the week. Maybe you think that I'm there studying the Bible and reading scriptures day after day, or I'm on my knees, on my face, praying, and tears and blood of sweat from my prayer life is just all over the office. And you might think that I'm super spiritual and that's all I do. And while some of that is partially true, the reality of it is it's quite nuts around here during the week. And it's kind of some crazy things happen. So anyway, so Judy and I, if you don't know, Judy's my boss. She tells me what to do. So we were meeting on Tuesday, and she gives me the list of all the things that I need to do. And so we were meeting, and all of a sudden some from the daycare came in and said, Pastor Paul and Judy, there's a mouse in the bathroom. And Judy and I looked at each other. Why are you telling us? So anyway, so it is the expectation, if you did not know, if there's a mouse in the building, that Judy and I are professional mouse catchers. So we put down our super spiritual work that we do, and we went on the mission to catch this mouse. And sure enough, there was a mouse sitting on top of the trash can in the bathroom in one of the daycare rooms. And so we walked in there, and there's the mouse sitting on the trash can. I don't know what the mouse was doing on the trash can. It was just sitting there. So Judy and I had to come up with this master plan of how we're going to get it. So we decided to push the mouse into the trash can, because that makes sense. And we did. Problem: the trash can did not have a trash bag in it. The trash can was attached to the wall. It's one of those metal trash cans that is bolted to the wall, and inside this metal trash can without a bag is a mouse. It's a little mouse, it's in the bottom, it's just running around. And so Judy was like, well, let's unscrew the trash can from the wall and take it outside. And I was like, that sounds like too much work. Do we have any Walmart bags? And she says, yeah, we have Walmart bags. So I got some Walmart bags, and I'm putting them on my hand, and I decided it's just a little mouse, right? And so I decided I'm just going to do like I do at home, and I just, stick my hand in the trash can and to grab the mouse, and we can put it in. She had a bucket, and we were going to put it in the bucket and take it outside, right? So I put my hand in there with a trash bag. I did not know that mice jump. Did you know that? I mean, they can jump at least 18 feet. I did not know that. So I'm reaching my hand in there to grab it, and then I'm pulling because I think I got it. I'm pulling my hand out, and all of a sudden, Judy screams. I've never heard her scream before. She screams, and so I drop the bag into the trash can, and she says, that mouse was climbing up your arm, and so I screamed. So we unscrewed the trash can from the wall, took it outside, and dumped it outside. So that's the story. That's what we do during the week, because Judy and I, if you did not know, we're professional mouse catchers. So anyway, so talking about screaming for a second. So when someone screams, it gets your attention, right? So when Judy screams, I drop everything, right? I was like, what's wrong? There's a mouse on your hand. So anyway, screaming gets our attention and causes us to react. And the louder the voice, the louder the scream, the more we hear it. Now, Cece, my granddaughter, has learned that she can scream. It's a new thing. I don't know if your grandchildren, when they first remembered, just learned they could scream. And so it's not that she's crying. She just learns that if she screams, she gets our attention. And if there's multiple noises going on or multiple people talking in the room, what does she do? She screams louder and louder and louder until she gets Mama or Dada or Mimi or the great Papa that's here, this super Papa that I am. By the way, all Star Wars fans, I was trying to go with the name Darth Papa, but Rebecca turned that one down. So it's more like Bad Grandpa is really what it's going with. Anyway, so we hear voices, and it gets our attention, and the louder the voices, we react to it. Now, in reality, there are a lot of voices out there screaming for our attention. In a very serious way, there's a lot of voices screaming for our attention, desiring something from us. Some of these voices are telling us who we are and what we should do. And some of these voices say things like this. If we could put them on, yeah, there they are. You are what you do. You ever heard that voice before? You are what you do. That's your identity. You are your job. You are what you do. In fact, when we introduce ourselves to strangers, what do we typically introduce ourselves as? Hi, I'm Paul, and I'm a professional mouse catcher, right? That's how I introduce myself, right? We introduce ourselves with our job titles, right? You are what you experience. You see all these people on Facebook sharing their vacation experiences? Man, I am so jealous. I mean, Nita goes to Alaska, the Gooses go to Alaska, Judy's going to Alaska. Why don't I get to go to Alaska? No, I'm just kidding. You are what others think of you, and that's a big one, right? We want people to think of us as good people or successful people. We are what you know. Knowledge is power, right? We are what we own, possessions, right? Us guys on Father's Day, he who has the most toys at the end wins, right? You are what you own. You are who you raise. Nowadays, it's a competitive deal on who's the best parents, right? Who's the best parents on the soccer field, right? Who's the best parents at the game? Who's the best parents with the report cards, right? You are your past. And so those voices are screaming for our attention. That's real. That's real. And there is another voice, by the way, that's whispering to us, telling us who we really are. But oftentimes those loud voices drown out the one true voice that's telling us who we are. Now, this leaves us discouraged, and it leaves us confused, and leaves us busy, trying to be enough, do enough, have enough. Often, times, this leads us to be hopeless, alone, and vulnerable. And it can leave us with our true identity stolen. And so we wonder who we really are. Sometimes it's hard to listen to the voice that really matters. So what do we do? Today, as we take a look at the story of Jesus and this demon-possessed man, I believe that we will understand there are a lot of voices trying to get our attention. And a legion of evil voices screaming at us are robbing us of our one true identity as a beloved child of God. Many of us are suffering from identity theft without realizing it. But here's the good news. Jesus, in his amazing love, crosses every boundary and every border to redeem us and heal us. Here's the big idea for this week. No one is beyond the reach of Christ's redeeming, healing love. Will you say that with me? No one is beyond the reach of Christ's redeeming, healing love. And that means you. And that means me. And that means our enemies. No one is beyond the reach of God's redeeming, healing love. All right, let's talk about the story. Let me just summarize it today. It's a story of Jesus and his disciples on the boat crossing over from Galilee, where they're used to. That's their kind of stomping grounds. That's where they hang out. That's where a lot of his ministry is taking place, in Capernaum and Galilee. And they're on the boat, and Jesus calms the storm, and they cross over to this new territory, the Gerasenes. This is where the Gerasenes live. And this particular territory is Gentile country. Gentile country. What does that mean? Non-Jewish country. Now, if you're a Jew, like the disciples and like Jesus, you're not supposed to go into Gentile country. Why? Because those people are dirty pigs, right? Those people are dirty. They're unclean spiritually. They are people that you're not supposed to associate with. But Jesus, he likes to get into good trouble, doesn't he? He always goes where he's not supposed to go. Remember the story of the Samaritan woman? He wasn't supposed to go there. She's a Gentile. So then he goes to the Gerasenes, and there's this man who is naked. Can you imagine that? You get off the boat, and here comes a naked guy. But he's crazy, right? He's mad. He has scars on him. It looks like he's cut himself, and he's kind of wild looking. And he comes out, and so here we have Jesus, this good Jewish rabbi, and this naked Gentile guy who's been hanging out in tombs, who's been bolted down and chained, and we have the encounter of these two opposites, right? And so here's this good Jewish rabbi and this unclean man. Hanging out with tombs, being around crypts is unclean also, right? You're not supposed to touch dead people, dead things, any of that. Cemeteries are no-no. And so we have Jesus coming in touch with uncleanness. Now, I'd like to share with you that Jesus, this is the first point, Jesus crosses every boundary. Jesus crosses every boundary and every border, every possible obstacle and wall to get to the people that need him. And that includes us. See, Jesus goes across this sea, which represents from comfort to outside his comfort zone to people who need him. This demon-possessed man needed Jesus' healing touch. And the disciples needed to see that Jesus would go cross borders so they eventually would cross borders in the book of Acts. And so Jesus is showing them how God loves not just good Jewish people, but God loves all people, including crazy naked guys, right? I mean, we can't even imagine that scene. I mean, it would have had to been one of the most bizarre scenes in the history of all the scriptures. And so Jesus, what does Jesus do? He heals the man, right? Now, there's a lot to it, so let's kind of break it down a little bit. He heals the man, crosses every border, and crosses every wall to get to the people he loves. He knocks down every obstacle. That's how grace works. Grace doesn't give up. And eventually in the book of Acts, these disciples, they do the same thing. The apostles do the same thing. They knock down every wall. They do whatever they can to get to the people that need God's healing, redeeming love. And we should as well. And so the next interesting thing that takes place in this story is when Jesus asks this man what his name is, and what does he say? Legion. Now, first of all, let's talk about demons. Now, demons, do people get possessed by demons? Yes. Do I understand it? No. All right? A lot of times preachers will go into the mental illness territory to explain demons. I understand why people go there. I would rather not. Mental illness is a deal, right? And there are people like your pastor who struggles with depression and anxiety. It's a real deal. But to say that there's the same thing, I'm not sure I can say that, right? And I know that there's people who said in public recently in the last couple of years that autistic people are demon-possessed, and that's just plain foolishness, right? So let's just say that this man is demon-possessed. And even though we don't understand it, let's just acknowledge that this man is possessed by something, a multitude of something, that is taking away who God created him to be. Maybe we could say that's what really demons are. They're about trying to attempt to steal our true identity as a beloved child of God. So this man has a multitude of demons. It reminds us of Mary Magdalene having 7 demons, right? Not just one loud voice trying to steal an identity, it's a multitude of voices trying to steal his identity. And so when Jesus comes to him, there is the fact that this man is being possessed by a lot of forces that are trying to get him to be and to do what he was not created and to be and do by God. But there's another element to this that I have to acknowledge, and I could spend hours on this one particular sidebar, and I will choose not to, but let's just give it here. The word legion is also a reference to a company of Roman soldiers upwards to 6,000 soldiers. So legion is not just a name that means multitude, it means a group of army soldiers in the Roman army. And so Luke, in his amazing wisdom, is not only saying that this man is possessed by demons, this man is also possessed by the demonic acts of Roman oppression. In fact, I would say if you take a look at the New Testament, specifically in the book of Revelation, there is that reference over and over again that Roman oppression of the innocent is demonic. And this violence that the Romans put and oppress over people is of the works of Satan. And so not only is Jesus healing this man, there is a powerful story how Jesus is Lord over the Roman Empire, or Lord over Caesar. And that's a story that I could spend a lot of time talking about. But ultimately, this man is receiving his true identity. And just like Elijah did not hear God's voice in the fire or the earthquake or the wind, that Elijah heard the voice of God, this still small voice. This man heard the calming of the voices, the screams that were telling him who he was, and he heard the true voice of God saying to him, in the words of Jesus, "You are a beloved child. I am well pleased with you." Let's talk about the pigs, because everybody wants to talk about the pigs. I mean, this story isn't about the demon-possessed man. Everyone wants to talk about the pigs. Why the pigs? And I always say, don't waste the bacon. I mean, seriously, what's the deal with the pigs going in the sea? Well, pigs are unclean, right? Jews don't eat pig. Romans do, by the way. Romans have the reputation, soldiers have a reputation of eating a lot of pork. So there is this element that Jesus is sending the demons, giving permission to the demons to go into the unclean animals, that go into the sea, the abyss where the demons came from to begin with. And I believe that's true. But I also believe there's a reference to the Roman Empire. And I believe the Roman Empire is the power of Caesar is being crushed by the waters. Just like Pharaoh and his army drowned in the waters of the Red Sea, there's that same element that if you're an oppressive power and you enslave people like this man enslaved by all those voices, you will face the same fate that the Egyptian army faced. And so I believe that was a warning to Rome. Let's talk about the response. We have the people's response. And how do the people respond? The people say to Jesus, "Great, thank you so much for healing our neighbor. You are awesome. Thank you so much for casting out the demons from this man. Now he's going to have a family back and he's going to have all this and everything's great. Thank you so much." What do the people do? Get out. In other words, their focus wasn't on the man. Their focus was on what they lost. Their focus was on our pig business has been lost in the sea. Get out. And so instead of celebrating God for liberating somebody from demons, their focus was on what they lost. They were focusing on what they could lose in the future if Jesus hung out. I wonder sometimes if that's us. Do we ever focus on what we lose when somebody is liberated? Or do we focus on the celebration of somebody finding their freedom? It's a good question. Now this man, how did he respond? "Jesus, I want to go with you. Can I get in the boat? Please, I want to hang out with you forever," right? Because that's like us, right? You experience the grace of God. You want to hang out with Jesus. This man did, right? What did Jesus do? No, I want you to go back to your home, and I want you to tell everybody about me. And so this man, who was naked and chained by the tombs, is now clothed with God's love and compassion, and he's sent back to his home. as a missionary to tell people about Jesus. I love that story. So what's the big idea here in this message? The big idea is that no one is beyond the reach of Christ's redeeming, healing love. Not this demon-possessed man, not you, not me, not our enemies. No one. God will cross every border, boundary, anything that's put in a way to get to the people that need him the most. Now, ultimately, the question is, what does Jesus do with evil? There's also this reference, and I'll kind of close up with this. Where did Jesus find himself at the end of Luke's story? Jesus found himself naked, isolated, outside the city, amongst the tombs. People were shouting and screaming at him as he was being torn apart on a cross by standard Roman torture. His flesh was torn to ribbons by the small stones of the Roman lash. Ultimately, the book of Luke, as well as the rest of the Gospels, is saying that how demons are dealt with, how evil is dealt with, and how healing takes place, Jesus comes and shares the plight of people like us, to let the enemy do its worst to him instead of us, to take the full force of evil on himself on the cross so that others can go free. What does Jesus do with evil? He defeats evil on the cross. He sets us free to be the people he created us to be, people who love God and love our neighbor as we love ourselves. So let me end with this next steps question. What next step is God asking you to take? Maybe today we need to listen for the voice, the whisper of God, saying our true identity as a beloved child of God. Maybe another question that we could wrestle with is, what voices do we need to drown today that's screaming at us? Maybe we need to recognize that we are not what we do. You are not what you experience. You are not what others think of you. You are not what you know. You are not what you own. You are not who you raise. You are not your past. You are a beloved child of God. So today, let us listen to the voice of the one who is whispering to us, you are a beloved child of God. Let us watch this video, and then we'll take communion.
Yo, comedian Michael Jr. here. As you know, I just flat out enjoy doing comedy. But one of the things I love way more than that is being a dad. Not too long ago, I'm going through some video footage, and I run into this video of my youngest daughter being born. Now, of course, I was there. I actually took the video, but I had never really experienced it from this perspective before. Now look, we're in the hospital room. She's sticky and she's baby and all that stuff, and she's in the middle of crying. And then I speak up. I start talking to her, and watch how she responds when she hears my voice.
Okay, Portland, look, I'm right here. It's okay, it's okay. I'm right here, I'm right here. We're doing just fine. It's okay. It's okay, I'm right here. Right here, yeah, it's okay. It's okay, baby, it's okay.
That was pretty awesome. So check it. A few minutes later, the nurse starts working on her, puts her pamper on her, and I'm not saying anything, and she actually starts to cry again. Then I speak up, she hears my voice, and stops crying, like again. But I want you to notice what else happens after I tell her that I love her.
Portland, it's okay. It's okay, it's good, it's good, it's good. I'm right here, I'm right here. I am right here. I love you. I love you. I love you. Yeah, I'm right here. I'm right here. It's okay. It's okay.
That's just phenomenal. I'm like, whoa. Here's the thing. We'll always have times where we're not as comfortable probably even to the point of tears, where life is just heavy. The key thing to do in those moments is to be still and listen for the Father's voice, because He is trying to talk to you. And I can tell you, what He wants you to know is that He loves you. All you got to do is open your eyes. Happy Father's Day.